Okay, so 9.4, solving quadratic equation by factoring. This first slide is just an explanation about if you were to graph something that looked like this, it would be a parabola, so it's like a U-shaped. Sometimes they're different directions. Anyway, what you're trying to find when you factor is you're finding these spots where they actually cross the x-axis. But this is stuff we've already been dealing with, sort of, but you just didn't know it, okay? So there's a square root property. So if you can get a problem down to something squared equals a number, you can solve it by taking the square root, because to undo squaring something is just square rooting something. So looking at something like this, we're just going to come in here and do the square root. What you need to understand is, yes, x equals 5, but it also equals -5, because -5 times -5 is still 25. So the way that we put that is we put a plus and a minus here. Okay, so doing this again, we have something squared, nothing else with it. So we take a square root of it. So x equals positive and negative 12. And then we'll have something like this, where it's not a perfect square, but there's nothing you can take out of it either. So your answer is plus and minus the square root of 14. Or if you wanted to put it in your calculator, you would do it to the 100th. So x equals 3, positive and negative, 3.74. My apologies, that's written really bad. Okay, then you could be dealing with something like this, which it looks a little different, but really this is just something being squared. So we're going to undo that by taking the square root on both sides. So this square root takes away the squared. So what's in the parentheses drops down, and then square root of 64 is plus and minus 8. But x is not by itself, and so we're going to have to go in and get rid of that 3. So we're going to subtract it. And I'm just going to stick it right here. So now we have x equals -3 plus or minus 8. And so you can actually answer that. So you can do -3 plus 8, and you can do -3 minus 8. So then we've got 5, we've got -11. So those are the two answers. Okay. So we're just going to keep practicing. Okay. So we're going to do this one that's very similar to the one that we just did. I'm going to go in just a little bit. Okay. So again, it's something's being squared, so we can just undo it. So we have x plus 6 equals plus or minus 81. Then we need to get rid of the 6. So we have x equals -6 plus or minus 81. So then we do -6 plus 81 and -6 minus 81. So -6 plus 81 is 75. And then, I can't believe I just put that in my calculator. So we have -87. Oh, goodness. Nope, these are way too big. Okay, these are 9s. Oh, dear. I knew that looked a little weird. So we need to come in and make these a 9. 9. So -6 plus 9 is 3, and -6 minus 9 is -15. There we go. Now we're better. All right, so then on this one, this squared thing isn't by itself. We have a 7, so we have to move that first before we can square root each side. So we have y plus 5 squared equals 21. And then we'll square root both sides. So y plus 5 equals the positive and negative square root 21. And then we're going to subtract our 5, subtract our 5. So y equals negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 21. And that's a perfectly acceptable answer. You can also put it in your calculator and go and do the decimals. It really doesn't matter. Okay, so same thing here. We need to get rid of the 3 first. Plus 3. So we have a minus 8 squared equals 13. Square root both sides. So a minus 8 equals plus or minus square root 13. Add 8. Add 8. So a equals 8 plus or minus the square root of 13. And again, that's a perfectly acceptable answer because we can't break 13 or anything, so we're just going to leave it. All right, this one. So you could distribute this, and it's a big rigmarole or a big problem. So we're just going to divide both sides by 4 because it gets rid of that. So then we have m plus 1 squared equals 9. So then you divide both sides. So, or square root, sorry. M plus 1 equals plus or minus 3, because the square root of 9 is 3. So then subtract 1, m equals negative 1 plus and minus 3. So then we got negative 1 plus 3, negative 1 minus 3. So then 2 and negative 4. Okay. All right, next. So then we have something like this. Well, there's nothing else to be done other than just square rooting it. Okay, but the thing is, so we have m equals the plus and minus the square root of 72. Well, 72 can be broken into 2 different, this is the one where we find the perfect square. So 36 and 2. So m equals plus and minus 6 square root 2. And the reason the 6 isn't over here is it wasn't something that was brought over. It's actually part of the 72. So that would be the answer. Okay, and we have a last one. Minus 14, x squared equals 25. Then take the square root of both sides. X equals plus or minus 5. Okay, and then your assignment is page 592, 1 to 4 all, and 17 to 26 all, and every single question has 2 answers.